Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan El Rom.
And I'm Aaron Viner.
In our top story, Jordan announced that it is canceling part of a peace treaty with Israel. In 1994, the two countries signed an agreement allowing Israel to lease agricultural lands south of the Sea of Galilee in the Jordan Valley area of Naharaim and at Tzofar in the Arava Desert. The lease for these areas is set to renew automatically, and Israeli leaders expressed surprise when King Abdullah announced that he was recalling the properties. The monarch's decision is likely due to public pressure to downgrade diplomatic ties with Jerusalem. Jordanians created a social media campaign counting down the days until the lands can be reclaimed, and 80 members of the Jordanian government signed a petition demanding that the king cancel the agreement. If the decision becomes reality, 30 Israeli farmers will lose 250 acres of land they have cultivated for 25 years. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said he plans to negotiate the two annexes with Jordan, and he hopes that Israel will retain control over Naharaim and Tzofar.
U.S. Secretary of the Treasury Steven Mnuchin was in Israel recently, where he announced that Washington is planning to increase its financing of infrastructure projects in the Jewish state. During a joint press conference with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Mnuchin hailed the Israeli technology sector as a particularly great area to invest. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu used the start of the U.S. Treasury chief's week-long tour of the Middle East in Jerusalem as an opportunity to discuss the ramping up of sanctions against Iran. The premier said that pressure is the only thing that can arrest the forward momentum of Tehran's nuclear program and roll back the rogue state's aggression in the region. Netanyahu praised U.S. President Donald Trump for withdrawing from the JCPOA treaty, which facilitated Iranian advancement toward atomic breakout. Both allies stressed the importance of the bonds between Israel and the United States and discussed ways to further enhance and strengthen cooperation.
The United Nations has voted to allow the Palestinians to head the largest bloc of developing countries, despite their failure to meet the basic requirements for the position. The world body agreed to grant Palestinian delegates extended privileges, which will permit them to make statements, co-sponsor proposals, and raise motions. U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Nikki Haley said the Palestinians should not have been granted privileges reserved for full-fledged members because they are not a UN member state or any state at all. She said today's UN mistake undermines the prospects for peace by encouraging the illusion held by some Palestinian leaders that they can advance their goals without direct peace negotiations. U.S. Deputy Ambassador Jonathan Cohen said the United States will not recognize this misguided decision and that Washington will continue to remind the nations of the General Assembly that the Palestinians do not represent a recognized UN member state.
Israeli legal powerhouse Shirat Hadin is back in a U.S. court fighting terror by way of the American judicial system. The Israel Law Center is suing Iran on behalf of the family of Taylor Force and 6 others who lost loved ones in violent attacks in Israel. Shirat Hadin alleges that the Radical Islamic Republic funds Palestinian terrorism and should be held liable for damages incurred during terror attacks in Israel. Taylor Force was murdered by a Palestinian terrorist during his visit to the Tel Aviv boardwalk in 2016. Congress passed legislation in his honor, demanding that the United States withhold financial support from the Palestinian Authority as long as the PA pays the families of terrorists.
A top U.S. official has designated Hezbollah a leading transnational organized crime threat and has called for a team of special investigators to crack down on the notorious group, as well as 4 other major crime syndicates. United States Attorney General Jeff Sessions explained that President Trump ordered him to disrupt and dismantle several international criminal organizations, including Hezbollah. Sessions announced the formation of a task force of prosecutors experienced in investigating international narcotics trafficking, terrorism, organized crime, and money laundering. Hezbollah has been engaging in all of these illegal criminal activities on U.S. soil in order to fund its terror activities in the Middle East and around the globe. American intelligence agencies have reported a flurry of weapons transfers from Iran to Hezbollah recently, adding to the growing evidence that Hezbollah is working to establish a network of advanced missile factories in Beirut. Aaron has more on this developing story.
Thanks, Yochanan. That's right. U.S. intelligence sources are saying that Iran has been carrying out strategic weapons shipments to Hezbollah, its proxy army in Lebanon. According to these reports, Tehran delivered advanced weapons components, including GPS equipment, to Beirut. These materials have the ability to enable the terrorist faction to convert its rockets into precision-guided missiles. The discovery came after Western intelligence operatives monitored suspicious activity by an Iranian transport plane, which made an unscheduled flight to Beirut from Damascus. International analysts believe that it was during this stop that Iranian agents transferred specialized weapons parts to Hezbollah operatives. Jerusalem has repeatedly warned that Tehran is increasing arms supplies to Hezbollah and that Lebanon is becoming a factory for precision-guided missiles that threaten the Jewish state.
The Hamas terror group is staging the clashes on the Gaza border. Israeli Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman briefed the cabinet, informing them that the Gaza confrontations are an act of institutionalized violence by Hamas. He said thousands of people arrive at the protest site on buses, and for each bus, Hamas pays thousands of shekels. The terror group is compensating the families of those killed and injured in the riots, which serves to encourage more demonstrators to participate in the weekly clashes.
The hardline Islamic Republic remains defiant in the face of U.S. sanctions and is now boasting that its military strikes can reach targets even further away than before. In what appeared to be a thinly veiled threat to U.S. warships in the Persian Gulf, the head of the Revolutionary Guard's Aerospace Force, Amir Ali Hajizadeh, said that his nation has improved land-to-sea ballistic missiles, enabling attacks on any vessel or ship as far away as 700 kilometers. He also proclaimed that all Iranian missiles have been upgraded with precision striking capability. Iranian rockets already pose a threat to the entire Middle East, but the alleged sophisticated weapons program could place Europe and the United States directly in Tehran's crosshairs. U.S. officials have also speculated that the only logical reason to produce missiles capable of reaching such great distances is to equip them with atomic warheads.
Israeli police have arrested two high-ranking PA officials for their role in the kidnapping of the man they claim is responsible for brokering the sale of an Arab home to a Jewish organization. The Palestinian Authority has issued a fatwa against selling land to Jews, declaring it to be a crime tantamount to treason and punishable by death. Any Arab involved in such a deal can face a life sentence with hard labor. We reported last week that the PA was hunting for the parties responsible for the recent sale of an Arab home to Jews in Jerusalem's Old City. The accused in this case holds American citizenship, and the U.S. State Department confirmed that they were aware of his abduction and detention in the PA.
UNRWA is bolstering terrorism and must be removed from Jerusalem, according to outgoing Mayor Nir Barkat. He told a special Knesset committee that the United Nations Relief and Works Agency teaches terror and must be kicked out of the Israeli capital. The mayor presented Palestinian textbooks used by UNRWA schools that glorify terrorism, and he said that the Knesset has a responsibility to stop the defunct organization from indoctrinating Palestinian children. Mayor Barkat praised President Trump's decision to halt funding to the irredeemingly flawed organization and said that the move created a window of opportunity to remove UNRWA from the city and transfer its failed education, welfare, health, and cleaning services to the Jerusalem municipality.
There is trouble in the land down under. The fate of the relocation of the Australian embassy to Jerusalem hangs in the balance after Prime Minister Scott Morrison suffered a coalition defeat in national elections. Morrison had only been Prime Minister for a few weeks when he announced that he was seriously considering transferring the Aussie mission to Jerusalem. Morrison's statement was met with praise from Israeli leaders and harsh backlash from the Arabs, who threatened to cut economic ties with Canberra if it recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. Morrison's statement also created controversy in Australia and an uproar among members of his opposition party. His government took a hard hit in recent elections when the country's Conservative coalition was unseated and replaced by a minority government. Many are calling the new Prime Minister a lame duck, meaning that it is unlikely he will be able to accomplish much in his office, especially moving the country's embassy to Jerusalem. Two of Israel's most prestigious universities have been recognized by the Reuters news agency as among the world's top 100 most innovative institutions. The article states that Hebrew University of Jerusalem has been awarded 9,826 patents for 2,735 inventions and has licensed more than 880 technologies. Reuters also honored Israel's largest educational institution for innovation. Tel Aviv University was highlighted for filing 1,200 patents, establishing 65 startups, and for signing over 200 license and options agreements with commercial partners. Both universities were recognized for producing original research, creating useful technology, and stimulating the global economy through their innovation.
That concludes the news portion of our show. Stay tuned for Ask Thesaurus with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask Thesaurus. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein, and we're here on a beautiful sunny day on our rooftop studio in Jerusalem. My guest today is Gil Troy. He's a very famous historian and author from the United States. Gil, thanks for being on the show.
Great to be with you, Josh. Thank you.
Well, tell us a little bit about the new book that just came out on Israel.
The new book is called The Zionist Ideas. In 1959, a guy by the name of Arthur Hertzberg came out with a book called The Zionist Idea, which was the foundational text that created this amazing miracle, this old new land of ours. And it was time to update the Zionist discussion. And this is a book to invite people into a conversation about what Israel means to us in the 21st century. Jew, non-Jew, religious, non-religious, left, right. We have to open up the conversation and understand the core questions of Jewish peoplehood, Jewish statehood, and the Jewish homeland.
One of the big stories coming out in American politics is our viewers. They're saying that evangelical Christians, Bible-believing Christians, are behind some of the big pro-Israel moves we're seeing from the current administration, from the embassy move from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem to cracking down on UNRWA. There's a very big pro-Israel movement. How do Bible-believing Christians affect this current administration?
For decades now, I've been saying, God bless America. There's no better friend to Israel, there's no better friend to the Jewish people, there's no better friend to the democratic world, there's no better friend to the Western world than a strong, proud United States of America. And yes, I think we have to say thank you to the Christian Zionist community that's standing up, that's working with the president, that's understanding that we, Americans and Israelis, have shared values and shared interests. And when you say, how is it that only one country in the world isn't allowed to pick where its embassy is going to be? And Christian Zionist says, well, it shouldn't be Israel. It should be Israel should be allowed to have its choice for its embassy too. It's a great thing. And when we stand up to Palestinian terrorism, we're not just doing it for the Jews. We're doing it for justice. We're doing it to fight terrorism. We're doing it to stand strong. So I want to say thank you to the Christian Zionist community. And once again, God bless America.
Midterms right around the corner. How big an effect is the issue of Israel in this upcoming midterms?
You know, on one level, at the end of the day, I think there's going to be one question on everybody's mind in the midterm elections, and it's Donald Trump. I think in many ways it's going to be a referendum. Are you pro-Trump? Are you anti-Trump? And the tension in the United States today is so much more about domestic politics, so much more about the Kavanaugh confirmation, so much more about immigration, that Israel in some ways, as it's been traditionally, is pushed somewhat to the side. But let me add two other things. First of all, I think Christian Zionists are understanding that the standing for Israel is a test of morality and of conscience. And we're also starting to see something very, very disturbing on the Democratic side, that in this election, there are 3, 4, 5, 6 Democratic candidates for the House who are really anti-Israel and who are breaking the bipartisan consensus. And for a long time I've been saying, you know, the bipartisan support for Israel, Democrats and Republicans working together, isn't just good for Israel, it's good for America. A healthy democracy needs some issues on which left and right, Democrats and Republicans, Christians and Muslims and Jews and non-practicing people can agree on. And the bipartisan support has been healing, and this election is challenging that.
Well, that's a great point you just bring up. How do you explain the fact that there are people running for Congress under the Democratic Party that are anti-Israel and in some cases just anti-Semites? I mean, we have the grandson of one of the terrorists from the Munich bombings that's running for Congress. We have other people saying that they'll vote against any support for the Iron Dome or any of the military systems. Why is there not a backlash because of that?
You have a candidate in Virginia who co-authored a really harsh screed that the New York Times said was anti-Israel and borderline anti-Semitic. It is indeed worrying, and I think there are two things going on. One, TDS, Trump derangement syndrome. People are so crazed on the left about Donald Trump that if you hate Donald Trump, it doesn't matter if you also are critical to Israel. As long as I think that you're on the side of the resistance, I'm going to give you a pass, which is unacceptable to me. That's number one. Number two is we need our William F. Buckley, the Democrats. William F. Buckley was a great Republican leader, a great conservative leader, and when he saw certain voices in the Republican Party starting to go anti-Israel in the 1990s, he said, hey, this is unacceptable. We're drawing a red line in the Republican Party. I smell the anti-Semitism behind this anti-Zionism. You don't belong. And we need Democratic voices to say that. I'm not hearing them.
One of the big things that's confusing to some is that we look at some of the polls and Trump is around 50% popularity in America. He's 92% from Jewish Israelis here in Israel. But in the Jewish community in America, he's between 20 and 30%. Where's all the dichotomy coming from?
So look, this is a complicated question, but fundamentally, American Jews, when they go into the voting booth, they're not anti-Israel, but they're voting about domestic issues. Israelis, when they assess a president, they're asking the question that Brits ask, that French people ask, that Australians ask, what has the president done for me and my country lately? And Israelis are looking through the same lens that many Christian Zionists are looking and saying, hey, this president moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. This presidency fought against terrorism. This presidency is putting pressure on the Palestinians to come to the negotiation table and to become reasonable and to get out of their hatred. So Israelis, 92% are saying, hey, it's doing good for me, he's working for me, I'm in favor. American Jews are so swept up in their anger for the domestic issues that, to my shame and chagrin, many of them couldn't even say thank you to the president when he moved the embassy to Jerusalem. And that's a kind of lack of generosity and, again, part of this Trump derangement syndrome, this TDS, that is problematic. And 50% of the country, the United States of America, is torn over Donald Trump because in many ways he's been a very strong leader. We see the economy going up. We see a foreign policy that's stronger. But he also, let's be honest, has been a divisive leader and has not been the kind of healing force that a George W. Bush was, that a Bill Clinton was. And I take one Republican and one Democrat to say it's not a partisan issue, it's really a style issue. That's not his approach. His approach is to stir the pot and not to heal the nation.
One of the big issues that people are excited about here in Israel is the fact that he's taken a strong stand against Iran and this horrible deal that was signed by Obama. How different is that policy in America today vis-a-vis the foreign policy?
I was very critical of Barack Obama's approach to the Iran negotiation. I said at the time that all he needed to do was at one point have John Kerry throw a temper tantrum, stand up, walk away from the table, cut negotiations for a little bit anytime the Iranians suggested that America should be destroyed or Israel should be destroyed, big Satan, little Satan, and two things would have happened. A, Obama would have zoomed in popularity, and B, he would have gotten a better deal. But instead, Obama was so anxious to make a deal that we got a deal that was bad for Israel, bad for America, bad for the world. And I'm really proud that the United States of America is saying, hey, wait a minute. In life, we sometimes need do-overs, and is opening up the question again and saying if the Iranian government is going to continue to lie, to cheat, to have all those secret nuclear facilities that Bibi Netanyahu showed in the UN speech that everybody ignored because everybody was focusing on the Kavanaugh confirmation, then there's going to be a cost to pay. And we can't go down the path of European appeasement in the 1940s. We can't follow the European multiculturalists of today. We have to stand for American values. Republican, Democrat, that's not a partisan issue. It's an American issue.
Gil, there are literally tens of millions of people watching this show. What message do you have for our viewing audience?
Two things. One, thank you for your support of Israel. Look at this amazing place. Two, read the Zionist ideas. Open up the conversation about who we are as Jews, as Americans, as Democrats, and how we work together, Christian and Jew, to think about a new world, a better place. That's what Alt Neuland, Old New Land, the Jewish vision for Israel is, not just for Jews, but for all of us. Look at this amazing background of Christians and Jews living together, working together, making a better world together. Thank you.
Thank you, Gil, for being on the show. And thank you for tuning in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. Now back to the studio.
Up next, the return to Zion with Karen Ayesod.
Shalom and welcome to the Return to Zion with Keren HaYesod. I'm Eliezer Moody Sandberg, World Chairman of Keren HaYesod United Israel Appeal, the leading official fundraising organization for the State of Israel. Today, you will witness the fulfillment of biblical prophecy through the gathering of the exiles. God bless you from Jerusalem.
Me and my family always prayed to come to Israel because it's a home, it's our home. 10 months ago, I made Aliyah with my sister. We are living together in Haifa. I'm worrying about my family because the situation in Ukraine now really terrible.
The past decade and a half has witnessed a frightening upsurge of worldwide anti-Semitism, unparalleled since the 1930s. Across Europe, incitement, desecration of Jewish institutions, attacks on Jewish property, and acts of terror, including murder, are striking fear into Jewish communities. From London to Berlin, Brussels to Copenhagen, Jews are being harassed, assaulted, and murdered. The situation is particularly intolerable in France and in Ukraine. In France, violent crimes against Jews have become commonplace.
Avec la multiplication des actes antisémites en France, donc déjà j'ai peur pour moi, mais j'ai aussi peur pour ma famille, pour ma femme, pour mes enfants plus tard.
In eastern Ukraine, over 1 million people have been displaced. In the escalating chaos and lawlessness, Jews have once again become scapegoats, with many anti-Semitic incidents reported.
When I was in school, my classmates told me that, oh, you are Jewish, it's not normal in Ukraine, why you are Jewish? It was very hard for me to speak with them, to describe every time what I do in Ukraine and why I'm Jewish.
I will give to you and your descendants after you the land of your sojourning, all the land of Canaan, for an everlasting possession. But Israel has always been the homeland of the Jewish people. Throughout their 2,000-year exile, the Jews prayed daily to return to the land of Israel. In 1917, Great Britain issued the Balfour Declaration. In 1920, Keren HaYesod was established to raise funds for this purpose. Since the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948, Keren HaYesod has helped bring 3.5 million olim to Israel from the four corners of the earth.
This is Bible prophecy come into fulfillment. It's not just my heart, but I can feel the heart of Abba Father. Abba Father in heaven is so pleased to see his children who are scattered all around the globe is coming back home.
From India to Africa to Europe, record-breaking numbers of Jews are eager to come home. Aliyah rose dramatically in the past year, hitting a 10-year high despite the security threats that face Israel. Keren HaYesod operates in 45 countries throughout the world. The Keren HaYesod law, passed by the Knesset in January 1956, grants the organization a unique fundraising status. In close coordination with the government and the Jewish Agency for Israel, and in partnership with the global Jewish community and Friends of Israel, Keren HaYesod promotes Aliyah and other national priorities. We need you, dear friends, to be our partners in this noble mission of helping the people of Israel return home before the window of opportunity slams shut and live safely in its secured homeland. Keren HaYesod, with your generous assistance, has redoubled its efforts to facilitate every Jew who wishes to fulfill the biblical prophecy. Friends of Israel, the Holy Land and its people needs you now. He will raise a banner for the nations and gather the exiles of Israel. He will assemble the scattered people of Judah from the four quarters of the earth.
Come join Keren HaYesod in fulfilling biblical prophecy. Let's bless Israel together.
To donate and get information, call us at 1-800-505-1665 or visit our website at www.khisrael.org.
Finally, a world leader has stood up and said the truth about Iran. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo's 12-point demands of Iran finally correspond to the reality of Iranian aggression, support for terror, and attempts to conquer the entire Middle East, destroying the state of Israel in the process. Those demands include a complete Iranian withdrawal from Syria, from Yemen and other areas that have been conquered by Iran and its proxies, an end to enrichment in the Iranian nuclear program. For what is a country that it's awash in oil need a peaceful atomic energy program, an end to Iran's ballistic intercontinental missile system, which has one purpose and one purpose only, and that is to carry nuclear warheads to Europe and to the United States and the rest of the West. An end to Iran's support of terror, Iran being the largest state supporter of terror in the world, with terrorist groups operating in Europe, in South America, and 5 different continents. It is an end to Iran's calls to destroy the state of Israel, to support terrorist groups who are actively seeking to kill Israelis, such as Hamas, Islamic Jihad, and of course Hezbollah, cutting off an end to Hezbollah. As the Secretary of State said when he was questioned about his 12-point plan, does anybody sane in the world really want to support a terrorist state? A terrorist state that has been complicit in the massacre of over 500,000 Syrians? Does anybody believe that that state has legitimacy, that that state should continue to get tens of billions of dollars in sanction relief and investments? Does anybody believe that Iran should continue to conquer large swaths of the Middle East with the goal of destroying America's principal allies in this region? We in Israel, of course, welcome the Secretary of State's bold and visionary plan, and we stand with him in the fight to end Iranian aggression, terror, and butchery.
Lift up your eyes and look around. All your children gather and come to you. The biblical prophecy is unfolding right before our very eyes. The people of Israel are returning to the Promised Land after 2,000 years of exile. But millions of Jews are still longing to come home. Anti-Semitism threatens many of the Jews. We must rescue them before the window of opportunity slams shut. Bless Israel by supporting Keren HaYesod United Israel Appeal, the leading official fundraising organization for the State of Israel. Together, we can fulfill the prophecy of the Bible.
Let us bless Israel together.
To donate and get information, call us at 1-800-505-1665 or visit our website at www.khisrael.org.
And that's going to do it for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan Elrom.
And I'm Erin Viner, reporting from our studio in Jerusalem. Please join us again next week for all of your Israel updates.